thank you everyone for joining us. We're introducing Tina Beaudry-Mellor, Minister Tina Beaudry-Mellor, and she started her career as an instructor in the Department of Politics and International Studies at the U of R. She has won numerous awards as a teacher, as well as been published in many peer-reviewed journals, op-eds, and business magazines, commenting on both political and social issues. During this time at the U of R, she chaired and served on many boards that supported women in Saskatchewan. She consulted on the side and was also the chief political analyst for Global Regina for every federal and provincial election from 2007 to 2015. When that wasn't enough, Tina was elected MLA for Regina University in 2016, and in February 2018, Tina was appointed to Premier Scott Moe's first cabinet as Minister of Advanced Education, as well as Minister responsible for Innovation Saskatchewan, and reappointed Minister responsible for the Status of Women office. Since being appointed to the Advanced Education file, she has traveled thousands of more kilometers, visiting more institutions across the province. In 2018, she led the Sask Alliance on an international education mission in Mexico, where 11 agreements were signed. She also represented the Council of Ministers of Education at the first ever education talks at the G20 in Argentina. In 2018, Tina passed her first piece of legislation. The Saskatchewan Technology Startup Incentive is the most aggressive angel investment tax credit in Western Canada. She is a passionate advocate for the growth of our entrepreneurial ecosystem. Tina is the mother of very active teenage twins and is a lover of the outdoors. Please welcome Minister Tina Beaudry-Mellor. What does an average day for you look like?
You asked me this question on the right day because my staff's all laughing because today was nuts. And there are actually a few days like that. So I get up, I set my alarm for about 6 in the morning, and I get up and about 6:30 or so I get a media scan that is shared with all of the Premier and so on. So I read that, I get my dogs fed, I get my kids fed.
Aren't they older?
Yeah, they're older, but you know, there's something about mom making you breakfast and sending you out. It's kind of a thing I have. So anyway, I try to do that wherever I can. And then I get off, I drop off my dogs, get to the ledge, and get on with the day. Today's meetings were back to back to back to back. And it's often like that. We have a bit of a joke. We have this powdered peanut butter in our office. And when session is on and we're really busy, we sort of mix it with water, and that becomes dinner sometimes. So it's kind of funny. I most often eat at my desk, and usually the evenings are also busy. But I line up my week on Sundays. That's been a ritual that I've had for a long time. A lot of people don't like to work on the weekends, but I find if I spend a few hours on Sunday and kind of line up my week, get rid of the sort of little stuff that I need to clear off my desk and kind of look at the calendar and plan out my week, that has really helped me, just to feel like, okay, I start Monday and I'm not in panic mode already. I kind of know what the lay of the land is going to be.
Yeah, well, media scan at 6:30 in the morning, that's not panic. I don't know what anyone else is doing at 6:30, but I'm not doing a media scan.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to way long ago. And when you graduated high school, what was 17-year-old Tina thinking?
When can I move out? No, but really it was. I was thinking about this. I thought that was really my first thought was, when and how soon can I move out? So I had a couple of jobs on the go. I moved out pretty quickly after grade 12 and worked at 3 different jobs, one of which was at Cable Regina, now Access 7, and moved out onto the apartment on 29th Avenue and started university. Now, the problem with that particular location was it was right across from Checkers, which is a bit of an issue. And a really good friend of mine was also a roommate of mine, and so that was a bit of an issue too. But nonetheless, yeah, my first thought was, when can I move out? I was anxious to be on my own. I was anxious to do my own thing and be independent for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah. Did you know where you were going at 17?
No. I did write a paper. It's kind of funny when I think about it in hindsight. Way back, I think in grade 8 or grade 9, I wrote a paper about why I wanted to be Prime Minister. And I went to Ottawa. And I was not into Ottawa at all in grade 8. I was more into the boys that were also on the trip. But I look back on my life now and I think, you know, some things maybe happened for a reason. I don't know. I never considered politics I thought I was going to be a lawyer. That's what I thought I was going to be.
You were an award-winning instructor at the University of Department of Politics and International Studies at the U of R. So what made you decide to join politics? I get that what you were in, politics and international studies, that's a great fit, but why politics?
You know, it's interesting because I didn't have political parents. In fact, I grew up in a household, and I hope this is starting to change, and it's part of what I'd like to see change, is that politics and religion are sort of taboo topics at the dinner table, and they certainly were at my house. That's a huge problem, because we do need to talk with our kids about politics at the dinner table, so it's less scary, so that when I get to that 100 level class, I don't have kids saying, I don't know anything about politics, and then they go to vote, right? I mean, we need to do a better job of that. Hitting the upper limit of where I thought I could go in my career at the university, that was one thing. Two, kind of a passion that had developed over the course of my teaching, that I really wanted to change the way politics looked, particularly for young people, and the way that politics was discussed for young people. That was really important to me. I had been really impressed with some of the things that the Wall government was doing at that time, especially, and most importantly, my passion area was keeping young people in this province. I had been writing reference letters for young people to leave over and over and over again, and that used to make me very sad because I would see the exit of talent. And I'm not going to make this really political, but that meant something to me, and they spoke to that, and so that was the other thing. And then I had a woman who nudged me. And I can honestly say that woman planting a seed in my head, and she only knows now that she did that, but she planted a seed, and I was invited to an event at the home of another group of really amazing women who said, we should put some women up to make sure they run. And they were from all different political parties and backgrounds, and they talked, some who were elected and some who were not, and they had a great conversation, and I left that house that day and thought, well, I think I could do that. It's scary, but I think I could do that. It was just really powerful, and it was the initiative of a group of really great women.
Yeah. I know that you're really good at planting seeds. I've seen you out at events, and you grab onto people and you're like, have you considered? Because I think I've seen you speak at Powerhouse, and it was like, have you considered? Why don't we step up more to boards? But honestly, Tina, we look at you and we're nervous. We look at you and just the strong, the image, it's daunting. And I think people think that I have to be you to be in politics. So I don't know if you have any advice to women who maybe want to make a difference in their communities, their boards, their work, to step up and go, you inspire me, you scare me, but I'm going to be someone.
It is a little bit daunting, and I'll tell you why. There's a really fine balance for women in politics. And I'll be really direct with all of you about this. You can't be too soft or you're weak. You can't be too hard or you're a BS. So there's this really careful balance in the middle where you need to sort of be really strong but not too strong, and soft but not too soft. And it's really, really difficult to navigate that terrain. So vulnerability is often a weakness for women, whereas if I can think about some of my former colleagues, if I can think about, for example, I remember sitting in the legislature when Ken Kravets was talking about his family moving back home, his grandkids moving back home to Saskatchewan, and he cried. And it was a beautiful moment, but I could only imagine that if a woman had stood up there and cried like that, I wonder how the reaction would have been. And I thought it was extremely endearing and beautiful for him to have done that. I'm not sure that I could have pulled that off. And so there's just this really scary balance. And so I guess from my perspective, there's a lot of things that women can and should do. And I think when you look at me, and if you see strength and that's intimidating, I'll share with you that I find it intimidating too. I find it intimidating too. I mean, we get put at a table at events where we don't know a single person at the table on a regular basis, and you've got to pull off the conversation. And so I will share with you that I have a high level of anxiety about social situations. I'm fine sitting here with you. I can do this, I can do a debate, I can do all, but the networking stuff, the going around, and that is really difficult for me. So I have a rule. I take a deep breath before I get here, and I go, okay, 5 people, Tina. You got to talk to 5 people, and then you can go, but you have to talk to 5 people. So I'm nervous too, I guess is what I want you to know. I'm nervous too. The difference is that I'm just going to go anyway. I'm just going to go anyway, because I will say that the most successful times I've had in politics, or those times where people have said to me, that made a difference to me, or that was impact, were those times where I have taken a risk. And I put myself out there, and I've been kind of vulnerable, and it's been like, ooh, don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm just gonna, and actually every time so far, hopefully this won't be the one where it's not, that's worked out. Somebody has said that made a big difference to me. And so my advice to people would be, number one, if you're too afraid to take a risk, you're never gonna get there. You've gotta take a risk. And the second advice that I'd give is, and you've heard me say this before, is you gotta get off the sidelines. I just witnessed two, and I'll use politics, I just witnessed two amazing female candidates not make it in the nomination. And it's because they came in from the outside and they weren't already kind of networked in on the inside in politics, and they couldn't make it. And so we sort of look at politics from the outside in. A lot of women are afraid of politics, don't like it, feel that it's messy, but you've got to get in there, because it makes a big difference in order for us to be able to make change. It makes a big difference. And you have to have some credibility within the party structure before you actually get there. And so I'm disappointed to see that two really great female candidates didn't make it, and that would be my advice.
Yeah. Earlier you said about, you get up at 6, media scan, dogs, this is busy. How do you, or what advice and how do you balance family, life, work, quiet time, I don't know, the list?
There's no such thing. I've come to this. I've been really stressed about non-balance, right? Because I feel like I'm supposed to be superwoman. I should be able to do all of this. It doesn't happen, and I've had some experiences lately that have taught me really hard lessons about that. I've now come to a different analogy, and my analogy is this. It's like a river. When the current is really strong, you gotta row the heck out of that boat just to stay with the current. When the current softens, you have the opportunity to lift the oar out of the water and look around and take life in. And in those in-between times, a slow and steady pace kind of gets you to your destination, a methodical pace. And I think that's what life is, right? There are times when we're in session, or when we're heading into the budget, or when I'm doing stuff on Treasury Board, it is hugely busy. And I just have to know that I'm not gonna make breakfast for my teenagers that could probably make it for themselves. I'm not gonna be able to do that, and I need to stop feeling guilty about that. At the same time, when it slows down, I need to be able to go, okay, I'm blocking this time in my calendar, and I'm gonna go for a run with my dogs, or I need to be back because I need to have dinner with my kids. And so I think you just have to manage it in ebb and flow like that, because otherwise you'll just make yourself crazy.
Yeah. So since you've joined politics and you're always busy and you're always in the public eye, what would you say has been your biggest challenge?
Anxiety of people knowing who you are. Some people think that that's really great, and it is really great in some ways. But let me give you a couple examples. You never know who is looking at you, and so going out for a drink with some friends, you're kind of always conscious of perception around you. I go to the gym, and this actually happened to me. I go to the gym, and I'm in the middle of doing burpees. Now, nobody looks good doing burpees. No, I don't care who you are. I'm doing and somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tina, how you doing?" And suddenly I'm just like, "Oh, I want to die." Like, there's no kind of space where you can go where you feel like you can just be safe. Do you know what I mean? That's now, on the flip side, I want to say that it's also a wonderful thing, right? Because it means that you are able to influence things that you may not be. And I actually like that people can see me doing burpees at the gym and maybe going, "Yeah, you're a normal person like everybody else, and God, you look awful doing that." And that's actually good, because I think it's important to be authentic, and I think it's important to be relatable. But it does make you feel a little bit anxious sometimes, because you're always afraid to make a mistake. And making a mistake when you're in the public eye, your mistakes are public too, right? For a person that's not in the public eye, you can create a goal and you can not make it, and maybe your family knows you ditched your New Year's resolution or whatever the case may be, but if you don't make a goal and you're in the public eye and you make a mistake, it's kind of, it's a thing, right? And so that's very intimidating.
Well, I want to talk about relatable. Like people don't think they can relate to you, and that's why they're looking at you, and they maybe don't want to come talk to you, and you have to make it a goal to come talk to them. Do you feel relatable? Do you?
I try to. I think I try to be. I mean, like most of I'm sure many of you here, I will finish work and go to a meeting and try to catch my son's football game. Not always at the kickoff, but I will get there at some point, right, and talk to the other parents, and then I'll go hit the grocery store on the way home because I absolutely didn't plan anything, and I've got to get supper on I mean, I'm sure if I did a poll right now, 90% of you would say that, know that, been there, done that, right? And so I often try to use my social media to talk about some of those things because they're kind of mundane things, but they're also relatable, right? We're all just trying to do our best, I think.
I think people just think you're so perfect. We actually do put you on the pedestal. That is something that we do. Like we put you up there and think you are going to be perfect. No one's perfect. Yeah. So what do you think people really want to know about you? Or is there a question that you always get, or maybe you have something to tell us that nobody else knows, but just...
Well, I'm a mad hip hop dancer.
Are you really?
Not so much.
No, Wendy said, true story.
I love driving and listening to loud music. I'm frustrated right now because I don't have a sub in my car, but it's one of my sweet joys because...
Like a subwoofer?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, because my kids no longer drive with me because that's embarrassing, and they have their own driver's license. I finally have control over my own playlist, and I find it very relaxing to just drive around with my music cranked as loud as I can possibly make it, and most of the time it's hip hop, by the way. Like, yeah, it is. So I'm probably the only one in the Sass Party caucus that listens to hip hop. I'm way outnumbered there, but yeah. And I used to play guitar for like many, many years. I taught guitar, and I sort of gave it up a long time ago, but I think it's like many things in life, you kind of come back.
Yeah. So is there anyone that has ever, and you talked about someone earlier who reached out to you or just started dripping on you, but they didn't really know they were doing it. Has there ever been someone who's reached out to you and turned your life around or inspired you or made a difference in your life that you can share with us?
Many, male and female. So I would say I have a couple of answers to that. They came at different times. When I was working on my PhD, I had a supervisor who was really hard. Like, she was hard, and her personality was also really bristly. But she was a very, very strong academic. And I remember, as things always happen, you always think things are great ideas. And I had young twins at home, and at the time we were trying another business. And as things happen, everything falls apart at the same time, right? Isn't that Murphy's Law? And so everything was falling apart, and I had to do my oral examinations. And I was prepared because I had been going back and forth with my advisors at the time. But all of this stuff fell apart like the week that I was going into my oral examinations. And so I reached out to her and I said, can we postpone this? And she said no. And I was really mad at her at the time for saying no. But it was probably one of the best lessons I've ever had, which is crap is gonna happen, and it's all gonna happen at the same time. It never sort of pieces itself out so you can deal with it nicely. And you just gotta put your big girl underwear on and forge through it. And what happened is I did the oral examination, and I sort of had a bit of it didn't go as well as it could have. And afterwards, they said to me, we're gonna give you another kick at a couple of questions because that didn't go as well as it could have. But I had to prove that I could go through the fire first. And that has happened to me many times in life, where someone has said to me, no, we're not moving on this. You either got to do it or you're not going to do it, and it has been a really, really, really great lesson.
How do you deal with change? Something like that happens? You've got to move. You've got to make changes in your life. How do you deal with change? Because I think of all the change agents out there. That's a big business right now, making change in your life, making change in your business, our careers, we're moving. How do you deal with making change? Do you have a business coach? Do you have a counselor? Do you have a psychologist? I'm just kidding. Don't answer that.
I don't have a coach currently, but I do believe in the value of leaders are readers. I read everything. Not even just in my work life, but every Sunday, and if I can during the week, at least a couple of times a week, I set aside an hour to read something that just makes me feel inspired, gives me something to, because sometimes, and I'm sure any CEO would tell you this, politics is no different. Sometimes you just need some good sage advice that you can hold on to, some insight that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So I read a lot. I listen sometimes in the mornings if I've got a really crazy week, and you guys will all laugh at me, and my kids certainly do, but I'll go onto YouTube and I'll find some like motivational speech and I'll listen to it while I'm getting ready in the morning just to try to get my mind right. And I've been doing that for a long time. I've been just get your mind right. And it makes a big difference actually in how you approach the day if you think forward and up instead of be stuck. And I think my recipe is that, as much as possible, I try to focus on the solution. Because you can let those, and this, one of my staff for sure will laugh at this, you can let negative thoughts spiral, and they spiral down and they spiral fast. And they add, right? They become a little bit of if you've been to the science center and you've seen that cyclone thing, it kind of grows, and that's how negative thoughts work, right? They just spiral downwards, and so you gotta try to find a way to, and I'm not very good at this, I'm trying, stop them, and then focus on a solution. And it's hard.
When you say that, I think of just being in politics, and I think of your life. And if something is said about you, and we were talking about, a woman had come up to me and said, we were talking about the blue suit I was wearing, and this was not this suit, and she goes, everybody looks good in a blue suit. Thanks. So, and I'm just like, I just look at her and like, did you just say that? But I don't say anything, I'm like, so I just wonder, there's people out there, you're in politics, people say things about you. How do you go right at it and stop it, or do you, how do you handle that?
We can't engage. And that is so hard. That is hard. That is really hard. Social media is hard. And as much as I will preach that you can't pay too much attention to Twitter, because there's 20 people on Twitter that are talking, and you don't really get the full picture of what most of the public is thinking about, and that spiral goes. It's easier said than done. And so everybody wants to be liked and valued, and everybody wants to be judged on the basis of actually interactions, and Twitter is really bad. By the way, I have a theory on this. Women dominate Instagram, they dominate Facebook, they dominate LinkedIn, they dominate Pinterest. Men dominate Twitter. And Twitter is by far the worst cesspool for this, in my opinion. So how do you deal with it? You can't engage. Even though you want to engage, you can't, because number one, drawing attention to it gives it power. And number two, it's never gonna go well. You're never gonna convince somebody that you're actually a good person, if that's the approach they want to take from behind a keyboard. It's just not going to happen. And so you're far better off to just leave it there and just govern yourself according to your actions. Just try to model the behavior that you want to see and just try to shut it out. Does it hurt? Oh yeah, there's no question. I've done a few tweet and deletes. Yeah, it's always dangerous though, right? Where I type my response and then I go, ugh, can't do it, okay. But it sure felt good for a minute.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
There's been many. I would say the leadership was a risk. The leadership was a risk. Number one, because I made a point of going first. I made a point of that, and that was a huge risk. I didn't know how that'd be received outside of the party. I didn't know how that'd be received inside the party, but I was very committed to not putting my hand up last. And seeing sort of the lay of the land and trying to talk myself out of it. I'm like, no, women need to go first. We need to come out of the gates, and we need to go hard, and we need to try to set the narrative. So that was a huge risk. And I'm, I didn't win the leadership, and I was out pretty early, but I am so glad I did that. That was probably one of the, outside of my kids and all, that was probably one of the best things I've ever done. Wow. No, it was one of the best things I've ever done. Sometimes you win even though you don't win, if you know what I mean. As a growth thing, as a just putting myself out there, as gaining that experience, as, you know, demonstrating, I think, putting out there a role for women, and Lana did very, very well, right? Made it right up to the second last. I mean, that was important. I think that was really important for us. And I'm so glad, I mean, it worked out, right? I love working with the Premier, and I'm in a good place. So I'm really proud that I did that, really proud. I have a lot of people that come up to me and they go, oh, I'm so sorry you didn't win. And I'm kind of like, I did though. Like I did, actually. So anyway.
Do you say that? Yeah.
Or maybe it's just what I tell myself, I don't know. I didn't cry over that at all.
Yeah, you won. Do you say that to people when they say, well, what is your response? I am so sorry. It's like they're making you feel like you've lost. Do you say anything?
I say it's all good. Like I'm in a great place right now. That was the best thing I've ever done. Like just in the last 10, 15 years, I guess that was the best thing I've ever done, right? There's been other really great things that I'm really proud of, but lately, that's one of the best things I've ever done.
Very cool. All right, so what is your end game, your why, and your mission in life?
Still right now, it's, I want to make politics a distinguished career again. I've been long concerned, and when I taught politics at the University of Regina, I was really long concerned that when I would start with my big 100 level classes and I'd say, what do people think about politics? And I'd get liars and cheats and really negative connotations. And I'm really troubled by that. And to some degree, that vitriol is getting worse. You know, if you disagree with someone, they're a horrible person, and it goes down that road really, really fast. My end game is, I hope, number one, that I can inspire people to think about politics as a great career, because you know what, it is. It really is a great career. We focus a lot on the things that are hard, but find me a CEO with 200-300 employees and a huge budget that isn't having some bad days. You're not going to. So it's an incredible opportunity, I think. I have a great job. I work with amazing people. We have so many funny shenanigans that go on behind the scenes. I get to travel all over the province, and in some cases the world. I mean, I got to go to the G20, right? It is an amazing job. I get to sit in the cabinet room and do policy conversations that are really historic. And I mean, it's a real gift to have this job and to get to meet the people that I do. I love it very much, and there's my pitch to all of you, right? Regardless of political party or background, I mean, this is a great job. And I hope at the end of my term, whenever that is, whenever I decide to ride in the sunset, or the voters decide that I will ride into the sunset, I hope that people will say, she loved that job and she made me think that that was a good job too. That would be great. That would be great.
Well, thank you, Tina.
Yeah.
I always find it such a privilege just to be here and just to interview, and then to have all these amazing women in, and man, Eric, thanks for every week you come. Right? But just, it's an honor, and just to hear your story and share it with you. So everyone, if we could just thank Minister Tina Beaudry-Mellor.